What's going on, everybody? So I'm gonna go over my deck today, my CEDH deck. I used to play this in a tournament, but unfortunately, due to my schedule, it was really hard to get out to that tournament. I typically used to work Saturdays, and this tournament always occurred at the end of the month. This deck is currently valued around 25,600 bucks on TCG, or sorry, not TCG, but Moxfield. But there is a big caveat to that, and I'll go over that a little bit later, and that's because of this culling ritual here, which was a swap out in the deck, but I will have a link of the deck down below. This deck, just as a heads up, is tuned more so for a 1v1 matchup. It is Thrasios, Triton Hero, and Tevesh, Doom of Fools. So the reason this is more tuned to 1v1 is Tevesh usually struggles in pod just because he's a planeswalker. When he comes out, everybody's hitting him. And when you got three different opponents swinging at your planeswalker, usually it's kind of hard to keep up blocks for that. So that being said, I'll go over the deck and everything, and we'll kind of get right into it. So right off the bat, these are the two planeswalkers. These I didn't really know. I think I just put in like the most blinged out versions on Moxfield, but I'll kind of go over why the deck is valued so high, just because it's like the one deck I put a lot of work into. And funnily enough, I took a break from playing it for a long time, but I just continued to slowly upgrade it. And these two actually altars here are done by Art Dark, so Ivan. And I'll go ahead and actually link his Instagram down below. He has a couple of altars that he's done for me that are in this deck in particular. I really like his work. I like the black and white art style, and I always let him just do his thing. I give him like a slight kind of like inspiration, and then he just kind of goes away with it. So with that being said, here is Thrasios, the out of the deck. And if you're not familiar with the card, I do have it in the back just in case whenever I'm playing, if someone's curious. Thrasios is a green and blue. And for 4, scry 1, then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped. So it gives you a little bit of card advantage if you don't have anything to do with that mana. So if you're keeping it up in a control style play, and you don't need to end up counterspelling on your opponent's end step, you just end up triggering this and getting the extra card. So that is the point of Thrasios there, and it can be a blocker for Tevesh since it does have 3 on the back end. It's a 2-drop, so if it does need to come out a little bit earlier, it can also be a sack outlet for a couple of things. I am kind of playing around with potentially putting in Flare of Denial, for example, which Thrasios would be able to be sacrificed to if I absolutely needed to do that. Tevesh is a very strong planeswalker, so comes out with 4 loyalty. There is the altar done by Ivan. And if you're not familiar, for +2, create 2/0/1 Black Thrall creature tokens. And then for +1, you may sacrifice another creature or planeswalker. If you do, draw 2 cards. Draw another card if the sacrifice permanent was a commander. So I can sack either Thrasios to draw 3, or I can just go ahead and sack one of those thralls or potentially another creature I have out, which there's a couple things that do create creatures for me, and they allow for an additional sack outlet there. So ultimately, Tevesh is a big threat once he comes out. You don't want him ultimating because he'll take over your opponent's commander. And on top of that, you can actually trigger him again if you did it at 0 exactly, because he'll kill himself. You'll get your commander back from the command zone. You'll also get Thrasios back from the command zone, as well as your opponent's commanders. So very, very strong effect. You don't want that to happen. Your opponent's going to try and swing or get rid of Tevesh as soon as possible because it's also insane card advantage. Him getting the thralls out, having them as his own blockers, and then sacking that to draw 2. So very heavy style of control there, and that's kind of how the deck plays out, and eventually to Thoracle combo or potentially do a couple other combos. Currently, I am running only 2 combos in this deck, and I'll go over those as we hit them when I go through the explanation. And like I said, culling rituals on the side here, I'll kind of leave it there because I'll explain why that impacts the value of the deck so heavily. So I'm just going to go right through the Moxfield list if you guys want to follow along, and I'll kind of explain why each creature or each card is in the deck. So starting off with Planeswalkers, there's only 3 within the deck, which are going to be Grist, Hunger Tide there, Karn, Great Creator, and Oko, Thief of Crowns. So Grist and Oko are obviously acting as 2 pieces of control within the deck. Grist allowing me to either get rid of your planeswalkers or creatures if I can keep him up. Tevesh provides blockers for Grist as well, and once those 2 are out, it's very, very difficult to get through unless you draw pieces of removal. This deck does run a ton of counter magic, so it can be quite a nuisance to try and deal with the two of them. Oko also provides a little piece of life gain because you are running things like Dark Confidant and the One Ring, which can drain your life pretty quickly. And then Karn, obviously shutting off any of your opponent's artifacts. Amazing one-sided artifact shut off versus, you have Oof, which shuts off your own artifacts as well. And this deck does run a few pieces of a few artifacts. So obviously Oof is not in the deck despite having green. So Karn is in the deck for that reason. So those are the Planeswalkers there. We have the, this one's actually not in Borderless Foil. One of the cards I hope to upgrade eventually into the Borderless Foil. I did have a textured version. I can't remember if I ended up selling it or not, but I'm not a big fan of those textured cards, or at least Oko from the OTJ set, and Grist there in the Borderless Foil. If I'm going a little too slow for your liking, let me know. I'm going to try and go a little bit quicker. I know I'm already 5 minutes in, but I don't want to just like skip over the cards because I do want to explain how the deck plays out. I really enjoy playing the deck, and I think it'd be kind of cool to just go over that in detail here. So next up, we're going to go through the creatures within the deck. So here we are. We have a 10th edition foil Birds of Paradise. That's pretty self-explanatory. Mana Dork for us. Another Mana Dork here, Bloom Tender. This typically is a target of removal pretty quickly as a 3-colored deck. She does usually end up tapping for all 3 colors for us. So really good Mana Dork within this deck. We have Dark Confidant for the card advantage there. Really good card draw within this deck, especially in 1v1. Another target that people usually want to get rid of. I have been kind of toying around with potentially swapping this out for the Bat from Bloomburrow, but a little bit higher CMC, so in a 1v1 format, you want to try and be as quick as possible. Deathrite Shaman, nice piece of graveyard hate for your opponent, a little bit of ramp, really low to the ground drop. 1 CMC, get it out right away, and you can either do black or green for that, and it allows you to color fix if need be, as well as a little bit of life gain. Then we have Delighted Halfling. This is a great card for the deck. Just a great mana dork in general. You can cast Tevesh, make it uncounterable, which is obviously amazing. And you can use it to tap for other legendary spells and get colored mana. Otherwise, it's just a colorless mana dork. And it's a 1/2, which also can potentially be used to help block for Tevesh. Haywire Might. So Haywire Might, great artifact creature. You can use this to either exile your opponent's One Ring or exile your own One Ring if it's pinging you too much. So a couple different use cases for the Haywire Might there in the deck. So great card. Mockingbird. This card I just recently added. I can't remember what I cut exactly. It is updated within Moxfield, but I want to experiment with it. I've been seeing it in some of the CEDH decks that are being played. So gonna go ahead and experiment with that guy there. That is a showcase foil. Then we have Oppo Agent, obviously really good piece of hate on any type of tutoring. You flash that out, you potentially get your opponent's, either fetch land or their tutor or something like that. And, this can end up turning the game completely around if you flash it out at the right time. Great in any Dimir deck because someone might be thinking you're going to threaten counter magic with that, the mana you have up. And you end up popping out an opposition agent on a sack, and it can be pretty devastating. There's some lines within the deck to do it, like even on turn 1 potentially. If they do it, you Dark Rit, you Oppo, and boom, you go ahead and get that. We have Orcish Bowmasters, pretty self-explanatory, super strong card that they've printed in the last 2 years. Really hates on any type of deck trying to use a lot of card draw. This is really great for if you're versing another Tevesh deck because you're just going to continue to shoot Tevesh every time he tries to ult when he draws, or you'll shoot his Thrall so he has no sack outlets, or potentially anything else that you need to get rid of. Any pesky like 1 toughness or 2 toughness creatures on the board that are causing pretty oppressive effects. Painter's Servant. So this is the retro foil Judge promo. And obviously there's a combo with Grindstone in the deck, so if we end up drawing into it, or if someone tries to get rid of our Thoracle combo, then we always have the backup, which is going to be the Painter's Servant. I am running a line for essentially what is a Yawgmoth's Will, and I'll go over that in a little bit. I had pulled Yawgmoth's Will out initially just because of the CMC being so high and mana intensive. But I will explain there's a card that came out in Duskmourn that replaced my Crucible of Worlds, which is going to kind of give me the same effect. So there's Painter's Servant for that reason. We have Subtlety, great piece of removal. We can evoke it, obviously, which is anything that's free in 1v1 format and you don't have mana up is just a surprise to someone, and can potentially, like I said, help turn things around or protect Tevesh if need be. A really big body in general. And there's Thassa's Oracle, this being the secret lair drop. I think this is like one of the most valuable secret lair cards, or the most valuable, which is surprising. But yeah, there she is in the foil version from the lair. So those are the creatures there. Very low creatures: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 total creatures within the deck. And that was actually up from initially, I was really not running that many. I had kind of toyed with potentially putting in Shieldred, but for a 1v1 format, it's a little too slow. So next up, we're going to go through our sorceries. Here we go. So we got Bone Shards. This obviously works really well with Tevesh. You also have Grist, so you get those creatures out. You can go ahead and sacrifice one of them and play the Bone Shards for the single black. Then you have Demonic Tutor. This card needs no explanation. Around the Resistance Alpha, Diabolic Intent, another tutor for us there. Obviously, we're trying to tutor into our combo or an answer if we're just being really shut down. So these are all there for that reason. We're running as many of the tutors as we can from the Dimir package. Imperial Seal. And then we have Mind Twist. This is in the Invocation. This can really also turn things around here. Very oppressive Thoughtseize. And then Time Twister. So this is one of the pieces that probably makes the deck quite valuable. And yeah, none of the cards actually in this deck are proxies. They're all running the real cards. But what I was going to say here is that this card is actually going to be replaced with Culling Ritual. And the reason for that is I used to run things like Narset and oh my gosh, I'm forgetting Notion Thief, and a couple other items that made it so my opponents couldn't draw an additional card. This used to still be in here because of things like Orcish Bowmasters and effects like that, but the reality is, even if it's going to get me out of a bad situation, I always find it to be kind of bad if I'm giving my opponent that card advantage. So I think for that reason, I'm going to end up running Culling Ritual over the Time Twister. And it's going to actually take its place in the deck, which is actually going to probably like take quite a bit of the value out of the deck, but I just don't think it has a place in the deck any longer, being that I do not run the card draw hate that I used to within the deck. So for that reason, Twister is probably going to be cut out for the Culling Ritual. But that was the purpose of it there. It's back when I used to run Notion Thief, and I also had Narset in there. And then obviously we have Toxic Deluge. Anything that's using your life as a resource and just lowers the mana curve to clear the board or something like that, really good within the 1v1 format because you are trying to move as fast as possible. Next up, we're going to go over our instants, and this deck runs a ton of instants. So we'll go through the instant stack here, and I'll show you just how thick it is here. So these are all the instants that are in the deck, obviously the biggest section of the deck. So we'll kind of go through a little bit pretty quickly here. So we have our Time Spiral Remastered, Abrupt Decay, Retroframe Foil. No need to kind of explain that one. Uncounterable. Black green spell there. Assassin's Trophy. This is the etch copy from Assassin's Creed, and I like this art a lot, and it's the reason I chose to put it in here. I know people can be like, if you're trying to bling out the deck, why did you choose an Assassin's Creed card? Well, not every card in here is specifically just to try and bling out the deck. It's more so also art that I personally liked, and you'll see that obviously with some of the altars and everything. Bitter Triumph, which is also a really good card here. So again, using life as a resource. Then we have Counterspell. I really like the Bruvac full art here, foil Counterspell. I grabbed this one. I actually did get one of the Doctor Strange Counterspells from MagicCon this weekend, but I don't think I'm going to add it in just because I'm not a fan of the art, and I actually really like the Bruvac one. I know textless cards can sometimes be a pain for people, but I think with cards like Counterspell and cards that just everybody knows the effect of, I think it really doesn't hurt to have the full art with no text. Cyclonic Rift. So obviously this is just hopefully a reversal. Dark Ritual. I have had this card in the deck for forever, which is crazy because This thing is now, I think, one of the second or like possibly the second most expensive secret layer card, but at the time it was not. I remember it was very, very cheap. I think I picked it up, it was like $8 or something. But yeah, Dark Ritual, great piece of ramp. Like I said, you can end up turn oneing an opposition agent or even like turn two or something. You can get out your Thoracle combo if you do have the right pieces in hand. So there's that. We have Daze, another great free spell if need be. Then we have Deadly Rollick, another free spell. So you'll see a theme here. Demonic Consultation. So there's the other half of the Thoracle combo. And the thing about Demonic Consultation, so I don't run Tainted Pact, but you can also use it as an answer. If you end up thinking that you're not going to be able to Thoracle or potentially your opponent's going to win, you have this in hand, then you can use it as an answer to that. We have Dispel. We have Fierce Guardianship, obviously our free spell again. Luster Storm. This is the retro frame. Again, see, this is not like really particularly the most valuable version of Flusterstorm, but I'm a sucker for retro foils, and I absolutely love the retro that they dropped with this release, so I grabbed that. Force of Negation. I also like Etched Foil. I used to play some Fab, and I really like the cold foils, and the Etched foils really remind me of that, so quite a few of the cards out of this deck are etched, as you can see with like the Deadly Rollick, so I do run a little bit of a theme within the deck. We have Force of Vigor. Some of these cards I don't think really need explanation. Force of Will, another free counter there. Force of Vigor being another free one. Force Spike. Leadership Vacuum. I'm going to pause here to talk about this card a little bit just because I think it's really slept on. I think it's a card that a lot of people don't use within decks. And for one, it's a cantrip. And for two, it hits two of, if an opponent is running a partner, then it hits both the commanders. So extremely strong card. It cantrips, replaces itself, and it's only a 3-drop. Can really reverse the tides, especially if you're dealing with commanders that have hexproof or ward and things like that. And I think as we start to see more commanders who are using ward, Leadership Vacuum is going to be a great addition to anyone's removal package in Commander in general who's running blue. We have Mana Drain, and that is in the full art foil. I don't think this is particularly my favorite art, but for some reason, it's the Mana Drain I have in the deck. So we have Mana Leak. And then we have Mental Misstep. That one again, another free spell there. Don't think I need to go over it too much. Muddle the Mixture. Really good card here. We can always use it to counter instant or sorcery for the same cost that a counter spell would cost. But if we don't need it for that, we can transmute it, go fetch our Thassa's Oracle, or go fetch a, Demonic Tutor or something if we need to grab the other piece of a certain combo. So say we have one piece of the Painter's Servant combo, then we can use this to grab the other piece. Mystical Dispute. Mystical Tutor. I don't know why I have this version in here. I was actually, as I was organizing this for the video, I was like, why am I still running this version, the Mirage version of Mystical Tutor? And I actually recall now, I, for some reason, listed a Mystical Tutor on my TCG Player store, and it was a retro foil, and unfortunately, I think I didn't have one in my actual stock, so I had to end up taking it out of the deck, and I never replaced it. So I just put in the old version of the Mystical Tutor. So that's why that's there, if anyone was curious. We have Nature's Claim. Pact of Negation, another free spell there. Shieldred's Edict. Absolutely love this art style of the Shieldred's Edict. Sleeves are pretty dirty. These are katanas, by the way. I actually prefer katanas way over Dragon Shield just because I think the shuffle is much nicer. So Shieldred's Edict, really, really strong effect here. The fact that this hits all opponents, I know I'm talking about a 1v1 format, but just a non-pod is just absolutely crazy. Such a strong Edict effect. Then we have Snuff Out, another free spell. Spell Pierce. Sudden Edict with Split Second. And then we have our Vampiric Tutor in the Retro Frame foil. And finishing it off with Wash Away. Great counter spell for commanders. So there's that. As you can see in that package there is a ton of free spells. So very big theme to the deck. So now we're going to get into artifacts and lands, and that's going to kind of close out the deck there. But as you can see, really, really heavy control. You're basically trying to run control, protect Tevesh, either end the game through ulting Tevesh. You have kind of 3 win conditions here. Either ulting Tevesh, and you're just going to be so suppressive that it's going to be very hard to turn the game around from there. Or you're going to Thoracle, or you're going to Painter Servant combo. You can potentially like whittle them down if they're playing a lot of like life loss items, say for example the One Ring and whatnot, and just control them till they lose that way. But that is not the overall goal of the deck. So artifact package for this deck is fairly small, so be pretty quick here, and then think we run 3 enchantments, and that will be it for the deck. So here we go, Arcane Signet. So this is one of the layer drops that I actually really like. I like this style of art, and I was just talking about this with the most recent layer that dropped, the Back to Basics version. So running Arcane Signet, we're running Chrome Mox, anything that can ramp us quickly. We do have Grindstone, that is a piece of the combo with Painter's Servant. We have Lotus Petal, and Grindstone can be, I'm trying to remember if it can or can't be grabbed with Urza Saga. I don't know why I'm completely blanking on that, but we also have Lotus Petal, Mana Vault, and Mana Crypt was a piece of this deck, but before I put out the video, because I was in the middle of my move and everything, I never got the chance to actually film it, so Mana Crypt is no longer a part of the deck. We do have Mana Vault though, and that is the full art foil. We run Mox Diamond. Mox Diamond I am a little bit torn on because it can be kind of like a dead card in the late game. You lose a card in hand from it, and in a lot of the meta that I play in, people can quickly just either get rid of it through like Abrade, Shattering Sprees, lots and lots of artifact hate over there. So getting this out and losing a land potentially and it getting blown up the very next turn can be pretty detrimental in the meta. It can really set you back in the deck, and so it's kind of one of those pieces which I'm still debating whether I do or don't like. Obviously early game, super powerful if it gets out. Late game, not so much. And early game, if it gets blown up, you're kind of like SOL at that point. So that's the case there with the Mox Diamond. Just a little bit of feedback on that. Skull Clamp. So here's another altar done by Ivan. You can tell it's in his style. I'll kind of give you guys a look there. This was, done by him. He decided what he was going to do with it. I just told him I'd like a Skull Clamp altar, and he went ahead and did this. Loved how it came out, and I was very glad he did it for me. But Skull Clamp, huge card for this deck. Like I said, you obviously have Grist, you have Tevesh producing creatures, and you can always Skull Clamp them. You can end up Skull Clamping some of your smaller mana dorks when you don't need them any longer and get that card draw. So potentially, if Tevesh is out and you don't want to end up +1 and you're trying to race to that 10, the Skull Clamp allows you to do that without having to use Tevesh's ability to maintain the card advantage in hand. And then Soul Ring here. So I myself am Egyptian, so I had Ivan do me a altar of Soul Ring, and he absolutely knocked out of the park on this one. And I kind of gave him like the idea I wanted. I told him I kind of wanted like a background of the moon, like eclipsing the sun and the pyramids over the pyramids. And he did an amazing job here. And I don't know if you can really see the detail, but he basically painted almost every brick on there individually. And that's his signature right there, by the way. But absolutely killed it with this altar. So this obviously won't be the ring that's the soul ring that's in the Mox field, nor will any of the other altars. I didn't really know what to put in their place. Like I said, do check them out. Then we have Talisman of Dominance. Obviously is the Demir, and then we have the One Ring, and this is the Surge foil. The One Ring doesn't really need an explanation. Everyone knows how that card works. Super broken. I am surprised that card didn't get hit by a ban, but I'm sure it's coming. That Chase Strong card, it's ridiculous. When that card gets out, it gets out of hand so quickly. Okay, so let's go through the enchantment package super fast. I will mention one thing here in the enchantment package that I did want to talk about, though. So, Rhystic Study, obvious piece for any blue player in CEDH. We have Sylvan Library, another huge piece to the deck there. And then we have Walking Closet, Forgotten Cellar. So this card replaced my Crucible of Worlds, and it is the same CMC as Crucible for the Crucible effect. And as you can read there, it says you may play lands from your graveyard. And it has the Yawgmoth's Will effect on the other side. Now it's very expensive, but it would be used as an emergency potentially to Thoracle or something if, say, Thassa's was pulled out of your deck or it was milled out of your deck, or say it was somehow Thought Seized or something like that. So it gives me the option of the Yawgmoth's Will without having to take up 2 slots for Yawgmoth's Will and the Crucible. And the other thing is that typically people don't run as much enchantment removal in this meta, so the Walking Closet will be a little bit more difficult to deal with. So that's why that slotted in over that. So now we're going to go into the lands package, and obviously, usually the lands package does end up being the majority of a value in a deck. So we'll kind of go through this. I don't think I need to explain the lands too much. I will explain ones that are more utility lands, but other than that, it's just more so color fixing and making sure that the deck runs consistent and you're able to do what you need to do at the right time, and you're not just drawing and not having the right colors available, unless obviously someone's playing some land hate or it does something that makes it so your land doesn't produce the right colors. So starting off here with the Ancient Tomb, and everything that I was able to do as an expedition within this deck, I really aim to do. I don't think I'm missing any of the expos, but there's obviously a couple land pieces which I do want to eventually upgrade. I'll just mention those in passing. So Ancient Tomb, we have Bayou, Bloodstained Mirror, so our fetch, Beseju, obviously we're going to run the Beseju, Breeding Pool, piece of removal if we need it, City of Brass, we have City of Traders. This is really good if we can get the Crucible out. Just keeps coming back out and giving us the 2 mana. Command Tower. This was an altar actually done by a good buddy of mine, kind of on theme with the whole Egyptian thing. So I don't really have a value on it. It's kind of priceless in my eyes, but this is actually Karnak Temple in Egypt. And if you notice, it kind of matches the Expo border there. I just noticed that myself personally. So Flooded Strand. Here's another big piece of the deck, which probably holds quite a bit of value, but our Judge promo, Judge Foil Cradle there. Cradle can sometimes be a whiff in this deck just because we are not very creature focused. We're only running 12, but if Tevesh gets out and we have Cradle, it can get really out of hand, and it's just so much value if we're able to get it off. So that's the reason Cradle is in the deck. Gloomlake Verge, I think these new land cycles are absolutely crazy. We have Island, our Mana Confluence, Marsh Flats, Misty Rainforest. So running the whole fetch package, Otawara, Overgrown Tomb, Polluted Delta, Rich Import. This is one of the cards I'd like to upgrade. I actually really like the Future Sight version. I really, really like that old style of the Rich Import art. It reminds me of like some parts of Europe back that I've like seen, and I just really, really, really like that old art. So definitely a art that I would like to upgrade into that. For now, though, I just have this regular Rich Import from Masters 25. Then we have Scalding Tarn, but that's a piece of control there. If we need to slow things down, we'll just go ahead and tap down their land during their upkeep. Scalding Tarn, Strip Mine, so this obviously works great with Crucible. We run a couple pieces of land hate in here. We have our Swamp, our Tropical Island, our Underground Sea, Urborg. So this helps us with color fixing. We have our Urza Saga, our Verdant Catacombs, Wasteland, so another piece of land hate there. So between Wasteland, Strip Mine, and Rich Import, we can be pretty controlling when it comes to the opponent's lands. And that's the reason those 3 are in there, especially with the Crucible, like I said. Watery Grave, so our Shocks, and Windswept Heath, and finishing it off with a Yavimaya Coast. This is the one land that I'm currently debating about pulling out, but I don't really know what I would replace with it. And like I said, as a 3-color deck, we really need to make sure we could color fix. I used to run Zagoth Triome, but I ended up cutting it in the end just because drawing a Zagoth Triome in a 1v1 format and bringing it out tapped is, it really, really messes up the tempo, especially for a control deck. So it ended up getting cut just because, like I said, when it did end up in hand and I wasn't able to fetch it out of the deck before it did on the opponent's end step, it was absolutely brutal for tempo. That being said, that is the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you guys kind of like the deck text and things like that, I can kind of go over more of my decks from Moxfield. This was a longer one, took about like 30 minutes here, but if you guys did enjoy it, I do appreciate if you just give the video a like. If you didn't like it, let me know down below what I could do to help improve them. Check us out on Whatnot. There's a $15 credit link down below, and I'll catch you all in the next video.